Hey guys, what's up? In case you missed it, last December, a new TV adaptation of the series premiered on Disney+. Now, a TV adaptation, you might be saying, isn't that already a movie? And you would be right, it is a movie. A movie that the author of the books, Rick Riordan, famously hates. He has repeatedly tweeted about his disdain for the books, describing them as his life's work going through a meat grinder. He even went so far as to release the emails that he sent the studio when they sent him the script, saying, "When I first read this script, I'll admit I was plunged into despair at just how bad it was," and saying that if he were intentionally trying to sabotage the project, he doubts that he could have done a better job than this script. And he wasn't wrong. The movie has a plethora of rageful one-star reviews, ranging from calling it a tragedy in film form to what happens when you throw too much money at a dog with rabies and expect it to direct a movie. In his email, Rick even offered to rewrite the script for the studio and begged them to get a scriptwriter who had actually read the book. I cannot overstate how ridiculous it is to write a film adaptation of a book you have not read. Okay? Who at 20th Century Fox was like, you know what would be so great is if we just took this book none of us have ever read, none of us know the plot of, and we just made a movie. He followed this up with 12 pages of notes where he went through the script line by line, suggesting edits of what would actually make it true to his best-selling novel, but the studio just declined his offer and decided to go right ahead with the absolute disaster that was the first script. Now, I read the Percy Jackson books in elementary school, and I loved them. I watched the movies when they came out, and I didn't remember them being that horrible. I, of course, watched the Disney Plus series when it came out, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a marked improvement, wonderful, whatever. Then we got to the Vegas episode, and just days before that was about to come out, the internet was abuzz with people asking Rick Riordan if Poker Face was going to return as the Lotus Casino's signature track. He assured them that it would not, urging them to normalize bad movie erasure. First off, the movie premiered in 2010 with a budget of $95 million. The show premiered in 2023 with a budget of $12 to $15 million per episode. So, quick math, that's gonna be 96 on the low end, 96 million on the low end, and 120 million on the high end. So no matter how you slice it, the movie cost less to make than the show. But in the show's defense, it's also much longer and there's much more content. Rick Riordan had a minor role in the film. When he sold the book rights to 20th Century Fox, he sold with them all creative control of the project. So they could pretty much do whatever they wanted without any approval from him in any way. So he could send his little emails and tell them what they should do to improve, but they didn't have to listen to him, and they didn't. He really had no say over the movie at all. But when it came to the show, he was not about to make the same mistake. He is a writer on the show and an executive producer, which enabled him to ensure that his vision was created as it should have been originally. In case you're not familiar with The Lightning Thief, it follows Percy Jackson, a 12-year-old demigod and son of Poseidon who is wrongly accused of stealing Zeus's Master Bolt. He then must travel across the US to find the entrance to the underworld, save his mom, and prevent a war between the gods. He does this with the help of his best friend Grover, a satyr, half human, half goat, and Annabeth, a fellow demigod and daughter of Athena. He finds out about this quest at Camp Half-Blood, a sanctuary for demigods who are constantly being attacked by monsters. Chiron is one of the leaders of Camp Half-Blood and sort of acts as a mentor for Percy. At Camp Half-Blood, he also meets Luke, who is a fellow demigod who takes on like an older brother role with Percy until he eventually turns out to be the Lightning Thief, who is being manipulated by Kronos, who's the big bad of the series. As for the movie, it's riddled with problems. For one, it isn't even close to book accurate. They cut out almost the entirety of the quest and invented an entirely new quest that has nothing to do with the book. No wonder Rick was outraged. Had he been at the production meeting, I imagine it would have gone a little something like this. I'm so glad you guys want to make the book into a movie. That's great. Oh yeah, totally. We think it's gonna be a really big hit. I can't wait for the fans to see it. I think they're really gonna love it. Oh yeah, for sure. Us too. Cool. So what are you guys thinking for the quest? Like, how are you gonna show the oracle and... Oh, no oracle. Oh, okay. I guess that's not a huge deal, but then how are you gonna introduce the quest? Yeah, Chiron's gonna tell him. I guess that's fine, as long as you keep the major obstacles like the Chimera and Waterland. Yeah, nope, none of that. What? But if they're not on the run from the cops because of the Chimera and they don't have to go get Ares, how are you going to introduce Ares then? Oh yeah, we're not going to have Ares either. But that's literally the climax of the book. Yeah, we're shifting the plot a bit. A bit? Okay. How about when Grover gets dragged into Tartarus and the bolt is revealed? Yeah, we're not doing that either. We just think it's gonna be too hard. What? Yeah. We're gonna add a Hydra though. Huh? Yeah, the janitors at the Parthenon turned into a Hydra. But the Parthenon isn't even in the book. Yeah, I know, right? Have fun. So let me get this straight. You're cutting out the major battles of the book because you think the special effects would cost too much. So instead, you're completely changing the plot of the book and adding more complicated special effects? What? Yep. Okay. So if you're just inventing scenes and cutting out like half the book, then what is this movie even gonna be about? We're gonna be more focused on Luke. Okay. So he's gonna give them a map of where to find the pearls that get given to him by the Nereid in the book. Yeah, we didn't want to have to figure out how to do that in special effects. We just changed the plot of the whole movie. I feel like there was an easier way to do that. What can I say, man? We just didn't want to deal with all the special effects. What about the Hydra special effects that you guys added for no reason? That's different. How? It just is. Okay, so you guys don't want to do the special effects from the book, even though that's the reason we're making it into a movie, so that the millions of readers will get to see the world that they've imagined on screen. Yeah, that just seems so hard, and this is so much easier, and we'll make more money. What the money? So there's no way we can actually make a movie that's about the book? Yeah. No, we don't think that'll sell. Oh. That'll show you, motherfucker. What? Oh, you'll get it. Just give me 13 years. Okay. Oh. The movie also cuts out major characters, plot points, and nearly all the battle scenes, including the Oracle introducing the quest, battle with the Chimera, rescuing Ares' shield from Waterland, and Percy battling Ares. Quite literally the climax of the book. Instead of traveling across the country and facing various mythical creatures trying to stop him from getting to the underworld, Percy has like a little scavenger hunt almost, where he goes around looking for Persephone's pearls, which will give him and his friends safe passage out of the underworld. How does he find these pearls, you might ask? Oh, well, that would be on a magical map that Luke somehow has. That's not explained how he got it or how he knows how it works. Percy also does this entirely to save his mom, with no intention of finding the lightning thief or preventing the war or any of that. Unlike TV show Percy, who does both, and quite literally chooses Annabeth because she
wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice me if the quest required it.
In the TV show, as well as the book, the pearls are a gift from Percy's father, given to him by a Nereid on his dad's behalf. This is a minor plot point, and the major obstacle is getting to the underworld in the first place. Overall, the TV show is far more book accurate. For example, Percy and his friends are actually 12 instead of being aged up to 16 in the movie for some reason. Percy and his friends being kids is what made the book so great. It's quintessential to the storyline and who they are as characters, as well as the core reader demographic. The TV show does a great job of showing Percy and his friends as kids, particularly Percy. because his childlike nature is such a big part of his character. For example, he goes up and taps his mom on the wrong shoulder so she turns around so he can trick her, showing his playfulness. And he quite literally gets distracted because Annabeth looks pretty. Like, what's more childlike than that? That's adorable. The show also includes little details from the book that make it feel real. The episodes are named after chapters, the costumes are book accurate. Luke has the scar, everyone at Camp Half-Blood has their orange t-shirts and camp necklaces, Annabeth has her Yankees cap of invisibility, the gods don't look like they walked straight out of a Renaissance fair. It also has just little details and little moments that are so crucial to what the readers visualize when they read the book. Like, Percy's mom makes her signature blue food, Ares' blood is gold. All little things that make this adaptation feel so much truer to the world of the book. Like, people who genuinely cared about the story and the world that it took place in took the time to create this loving adaptation that's true to what the readers fell in love with in the first place. The movie, on the other hand, has none of these things. Another main problem with the movie is that it just explains everything by telling you. Good movies are designed to show you, not tell you, so that the viewer can process its information and come to their own conclusions about what it's telling them. You're supposed to trust your audience because film is a visual medium. You're supposed to show the viewer what is happening. And this movie just doesn't do that at all. And it doesn't even show you and then tell you, it just straight up tells you. Instead of watching Percy come to camp, interact with his fellow campers, get claimed, grapple with that information, he just realizes it by looking at a trident?
My father's Poseidon.
And then Chiron exposition dumps.
Zeus's bolt is the most powerful weapon ever created. And if it's not returned by the summer solstice in 10 days, there will be a war. Someone's using you to start a war.
And Percy barely even reacts.
The Fury and the Minotaur were only the beginning.
The TV show, though, does an excellent job of sprinkling exposition throughout. For example, Percy's mom only tells him who he really is when he's in danger, because she didn't want him to know the truth, which makes sense for her character and wanting to protect him. And they don't even get through all of the explanation because they have to flee because Percy's in danger, keeping the stakes of the show relevant to the plot and making it seem so much more realistic and not just like she's exposition dumping. They also do this really well when explaining why Percy knows things that most people wouldn't know. He talks about how his mom would tell him stories about Greek mythology and how she really emphasized learning the lessons from these stories, which makes sense why he has all this mythology background knowledge that most people wouldn't have. Another example of this is when Mr. D is trying to convince Percy to get him a drink because, as Chiron explains, demigods can do things for gods that they can't do for themselves, which is a great way to set up one of the main premises of the book in a really natural way. The TV show gives a much more layered sense of who the characters are. In the movie, even Percy's pretty one-dimensional and doesn't really have any depth. The TV show, though, does an excellent job portraying his signature, sassy, funny side.
Yeah, Grover. I heard him the first time.
But did you?
She fought valiantly, and she met a hero's fate.
She met a pinecone's fate.
And what a sweet kid he is. There's a really sweet scene between him and Luke where he explains to Luke why he didn't pick him to go on the quest because he doesn't want to hurt Luke's feelings.
I have a chance to rescue my mom from Hades. I can't let anything stop me. And I'm afraid if it gets in the way of the quest, annabeth might try to. And you told me you'll always be on her side no matter what, and
It's okay.
The show also does a great job of showing how Percy takes responsibility for his actions and how they impact other people. When he confronts Zeus and urges him to call off the war, Percy takes full responsibility for his actions and defends his friends.
I didn't steal it. Neither did any of my friends. We found it. We got it back. We tried to get it to you on time, but
You failed.
yes.
He's also willing to sacrifice himself for his friends, which he does repeatedly throughout the series, showing how important loyalty is to him. The show also goes into his background and how he grew up as a troubled kid,
There is something wrong with my brain. I'm afraid something may be really broken.
and how being bullied gave him a strong sense of justice, which is a cornerstone of who he is as a character. The movie doesn't really go into Percy's relationship with his mom or his issues with his dad. In the TV show, though, his relationship with his mom is a huge part of his character, and her philosophy really impacts him. She didn't approve of the kind of family the gods are, and there's this whole subplot of the gods being a really fucked up family.
My mom told me these stories all the time. I remember this. She said this is what the gods are like to each other. This is the kind of family they are.
And her urging Percy to stay away from that is something that Annabeth later praises him for. In one of my favorite scenes of the entire series, after Percy learns that demigods sacrifice food that matters to them for the gods, he burns blue candy that his mom gave him so that he can talk to her. And it's just a really sweet moment that shows how much she meant to him.
Hi, Mom. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I hope you can hear me. He isn't here. My father, he just didn't show. I mean, ignoring me is one thing, but he doesn't get to ignore you. I'm gonna make him see me. I'm gonna make him see us both.
There's also a really great scene where he declares himself Sally Jackson's son and praises her for being the one who stayed.
Poseidon has ignored me my entire life.
You are his son.
I am Sally Jackson's son.
Who's Sally Jackson?
She's the one who cared enough to call herself my mother. She's the one who got herself killed so that I could be safe here.
One scene that I think perfectly encapsulates Percy's relationship with his mom in the TV show versus the movie is the Minotaur scene, where she's killed, as far as Percy knows at the time. In the movie, Percy doesn't really even react to this. He doesn't even shed a tear, whereas in the show, he doesn't want to leave her, he goes back for her, and when she does die, you can see how much it impacts him, which gives his actions meaning since he's fighting to avenge her. His relationship with her is directly tied to his abandonment issues with his dad, which is something the show does a great job of showing. He's so used to being neglected that when he finally gets to have a conversation with his dad, he doesn't ask him why he never visited or communicated with him. Instead, all he cares about is his mom, and he asks Poseidon if he ever dreamed about her, because she's the only thing that matters to him.
Do you ever dream about Mom?
You can see the pain in Percy's eyes from being abandoned by his father, but he doesn't make it about him. He only cares about her. In the movie, there's a similar scene, but it isn't nearly nuanced enough, and Percy isn't emotional or angry enough.
In your thoughts and in your dreams, I'll stand by you, Percy. Always.
In the TV show, you can so clearly see how Percy's relationship with his dad has affected him, something sorely missing from the movie. The show also does a great job of establishing that Percy doesn't understand this world. There's tons of little moments that show how in over his head Percy is, whereas in the movie, he just adjusts far too quickly. For example, when the Celestial Trio is outside Medusa's and she comes out, Annabeth and Grover rush to cover their eyes. Even the Fury covers her eyes before Percy realizes, and he's like, oh fuck, that's right. And then he goes to cover his eyes. It goes so far to show how new to all of this he is. He also genuinely asks Annabeth to ask Athena for help and doesn't at all understand her visceral reaction to this, and like genuinely is like, I don't know what's going on, guys. Like, I don't understand this. And it's not only Percy who's more developed in the show. In the movie, Grover's supposed to act as comic relief, but he was so annoying, and genuinely every time he popped on screen, I wanted to hurl my computer across the room.
Ooh, double team.
Watch out!
Hey, whoa, you guys gonna kill the man and save the world?
Ooh, the daughters of Aphrodite. Okay.
Hey, baby! First class, baby. Wait, come on, don't leave. I'm available.
In the TV show, though, Grover is depicted as the snacky comic relief.
Just don't eat anything.
Wait, why were you looking at me when you said that?
Who acts as the mediator between Percy and Annabeth's spats, and is a crucial member of the team and the reason they all work together. He even outwits Ares into admitting that he knows who the lightning thief is, proving what an asset Grover is.
Was she always like that? Your sister, Athena. Always making things more complicated than they need to be so people will think she's smarter than you. Totally.
It's like people only see what they want to see and ignore anything at all that doesn't fit the story they like to tell themselves.
Exactly. Like you being the one to find the lightning thief and not her.
He's also given way more backstory into his role as the Protector and his lifelong goal to search for Pan.
Is that your searcher's license?
Yeah. Officially authorized to begin the quest for Pan.
In the movie, it almost seems like Grover and Percy aren't even friends, and Percy just kind of has to put up with him.
Yeah, I'm going for a walk.
Oh, for a walk. I'm coming with you.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going alone.
No, I'm coming with you.
No.
You're being followed.
But in the TV show, they're genuinely friends, And their friendship has layers. Grover betrays Percy's trust and gets him kicked out of school in order to protect him, which Percy doesn't know at the time. But Percy has to overcome that betrayal and become friends with Grover again before they can move on. It adds so much more depth to the characters, and it makes their friendship feel so much more true to life. As for Annabeth, in the movie, she's really just a pretty girl that Percy likes with none of her trademark intelligence from the books. The show fixes this by actually giving her personality. She's depicted as more guarded and closed off, and has a whole arc with her mom and adopting Percy's ideology. On the train, she opens up to Percy about why she likes the rule of the gods and how you can at least predict things with them.
I started out as a gift to my father. Then he met a woman. And to her, I wasn't a gift. I was a problem. It isn't the gods who think that way. It's everybody. But at least with the gods, you know the rules. Show them respect and they'll be in your corner no matter what.
But the more time she spends with Percy, the more she adopts his mom's ideology. And she has a whole speech to Hephaestus where she praises Percy's mom's ideology and how he's different than the rule of the gods.
Eat or be eaten. Power and glory and nothing else matters. Ares is that way. Zeus is that way. My mother is that way. He isn't that way. He's better than that. Maybe I was that way once, but I don't want to be that way anymore. I won't be like all of you. I just won't.
Even convincing Hephaestus to let him go. Percy and Annabeth, or Perciveth's, relationship is the main love story of the series, a slow burn, friends to lovers that takes place over 5 books. The movie throws this out the window, though, with its cheap romance subplot that doesn't even give Percy and Annabeth a chance to be friends first. The TV show fixes this by actually giving them a chance to develop a friendship. A major turning point in this friendship is at Waterland, when Percy sacrifices himself to get Ares' shield back.
I need you to promise me something.
I'm not leaving the underworld without your mom.
Thank you. I was gonna say, when this quest is done, can you maybe swing back here and try to get me out of this thing?
You think you had to ask?
Just making sure.
Annabeth promises to save his mom, and even though Percy thinks he's about to die, the last thing he does is comfort her.
Percy, stand up. I mean it.
It's okay. I'm okay.
And in return, instead of taking the shield and going back to Ares and going on with the quest, Annabeth tries to find a way to get Percy out of the chair and has her whole Hephaestus monologue, and it just shows how much they've grown to care about each other, that Percy would trust her to save his mom, and that she would go against just doing whatever was best for the quest and actually choose to save his mom because she knows how much she means to him. The show also brings back them calling each other Seaweed Brain and Wise Girl, which is just a little detail from the books that so encapsulates the friendly, playful nature of their romance. And in one of my favorite moments of the series, Annabeth gives Percy her camp necklace for good luck when he's about to go to Olympus, and the way that he watches as she puts it on him just shows how deeply they care about each other and plays at the romantic undertones of their friendship. Overall, the show just does a much better job of developing the friendships, especially as a trio. There's little moments throughout that show how they've become a team and a little family, like when Percy and Grover look back at Annabeth after she smashes her pearl to get out of the underworld to make sure that she got out okay, showing how much they care about her. The scene that best illustrates this, though, is in the last episode, when they're about to depart for the summer and they have a cute little group hug. It just really captures the love of their friendship from the books and what a family they've become. It's not just the characters in the movie that fall flat, though. The special effects are horrible. The scale of the gods to the humans is ridiculous and looks like something straight out of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's just so unrealistic that it pulls you directly out and just makes you so aware that what you're watching isn't real. The special effects in the TV show, though, are so much better. Most notably the Chimera and when Percy transforms into the chair. My biggest issue with the movie, though, is that it just doesn't make sense. Annabeth is way too turned on by this. She takes off her helmet when she's about to fight Percy, which is the exact opposite purpose of a helmet, and she then proceeds to lose to Percy immediately after it was just established that she's never lost.
My mother is goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. Do you know what that means? I always win.
despite the fact that Percy has literally never done this before in his life. Percy also just stumbles upon the flag, and after he defeats Annabeth, the other team just lets him take it, despite the fact that he's severely outnumbered. Percy and Annabeth then proceed to have the most unnatural conversation I have ever witnessed in my entire life.
I'm not gonna grow a fishtail or gills or anything like that, am I?
Not likely. Although a huge ego isn't out of the question.
Why is he so confused by this? She's like, yeah, don't get a big ego. And he's like, oh, what? Me? A big ego? That's crazy. And then she says,
I definitely have strong feelings for you. Just haven't decided if they're positive or negative yet.
calm down, girl. It's been less than a day. Then there's a scene at Medusa's where Annabeth's arm is stuck in a statue, so Grover chops off the arm of the statue, and then Annabeth just pries her arm out of the statue's grasp. Couldn't she have just done that without the arm chopping? And then, when they're traipsing about the US on their ridiculous pearl quest, Medusa's head just suddenly gains the ability to propel fire? Not to mention when Percy's trying to sneak out of camp and runs into Grover, who asks him how he's planning on getting to the underworld. And then Percy replies, Did not think of that one. What do you mean? That's literally that's where you're trying to go. And you didn't think of how you might get there? But not to worry, Luke knows. Somehow, for no apparent reason, and he has the ability to magically activate this map we don't know why he has, and these flying shoes that he apparently stole from his dad, but we don't know how or when that happened. And does everyone at this camp have their own cabin? Because if so, this is a giant camp. Like, that's so many cabins, because there's so many campers. Like, is it all of Long Island? And then they drive past a billboard that says what day it is? That's not a thing. It's like the writers of this movie have just never experienced real life. Now, that's not to say that the movie doesn't have anything good to offer. I would actually argue that the Lotus Hotel scene is better in the movie. Not only is Poker Face an iconic song choice, the movie also had the stroke of genius to have the Celestial Trio eat lotus blossoms to lull them into a state of complacency where they stay there forever. There's a great shot of them eating the lotus flowers as the background blurs out behind them and the song starts playing, like perfectly encapsulating the drugged state that they're entering and just really setting the tone for the whole scene. However, the way that Percy's finally able to break out of this is by hearing his dad's voice, which explains what the flowers are doing.
No, Percy. Don't eat the flower. It dulls the senses. Keeps you prisoner here.
This is cheap, and the way his dad explains everything to him completely takes this victory away from Percy, as he's just sort of listening to instructions now instead of figuring anything else out on his own. However, the movie won me back when the trio stole a car from the casino and joyrided out of there. Something I've always wanted to do, and a far more exciting ending to the scene than in the TV show. Also, Annabeth explains the mythology behind the casino and realizes what it was after they're in the casino.
Of course. Now that all makes sense.
What?
That was the lair of the Lotus Eaters. They've been luring people into their traps since ancient times.
Instead of before, like in the show.
Odysseus lands on a beach. There's these guys who've forgotten where they came from, forgot everything that was important to them. They got that way because they ate
the lotus flowers.
In fact, the Lotus Hotel in the TV show pales in comparison to the one in the movie. It's really mostly just food and VR goggles, which isn't nearly as alluring as the absolute spectacle of gambling that is the movie. The TV show also has the lotus being diffused into the air, which is cool, but not nearly as cool or visually enticing as the trio actually eating the lotus flowers. They also take Hermes' cab in the TV show, which is fine, but not nearly as badass as driving a stolen car out of a casino. In the TV show, Annabeth just sort of realized immediately that it was Medusa's lair.
Auntie M has a garden full of petrified stone folks. Anyone want to guess what M is short for?
Whereas in the movie, they actually figured it out as they went, which I think gave it a lot more suspense.
Percy! Listen, where are we? We're in Medusa's lair. In a body!
The movie is also littered with plot holes, like when Percy chops off Medusa's head, her eyes are open, but when it pans back to her, they're closed, and somehow he knew that you could look in reflections and it wouldn't kill you, but that's never really explained. And the way that he kills her in the movie is fine. Like, Annabeth hits her with a car, and then when she's disoriented, he chops her head off. But in the movie, when Annabeth puts the invisibility cap on her and then Percy does it, it just makes more sense. In the TV show, they ship Medusa's head to Olympus, as they do in the books. In the movie, though, they just traipse about the country with it, scaring civilians who shouldn't even be able to see it. It proceeds to violate the mist rule, as TV Grover so nicely explains.
The mist. It's the veil that hides the magical world from the human world.
Not only is the climax completely different than that of the show, it's completely made up, doesn't make sense within the laws of the story's universe, and fails to establish the big bad of the series. The movie just chooses to ignore the vast majority of the book's storyline, and instead of having Percy fight Ares, the literal god of war, the producers thought it would be better if he fought, you guessed it, a fellow camper? Because that's so much cooler. And where does this fight happen, you might ask? Oh, on the rooftops of New York City and flying through the air on winged shoes, despite the fact that Percy canonically isn't able to fly lest Zeus strike him out of the sky, something that the TV show actually takes the time to explain.
You're a forbidden child. Zeus might decide to take a shot at you himself. The sky is his domain. He'd be serving you up on a silver platter to try to travel through it.
And not only is the fight not possible, it's also poorly written. First off, how does Luke have another pair of winged shoes? Not explained. Why does Luke announce himself as a lightning thief?
I'm the lightning thief.
Even though they didn't know that about him, therefore giving away any chance he has as a surprise attack? No one really knows. Would it have made so much more sense for Luke to pretend to still be on their side and be like, oh, let me take this bolt off your hands and bring it back to the gods, so that he could betray them in a way that intellectually makes sense? Would have been great. But no, he just announces himself and explains everything, almost as if the producers were afraid that someone in the audience wouldn't be able to figure it out.
You hid the bolt in my shield. Why?
Well, when you said you were going to the underworld, it hit me. That is the perfect opportunity to get the bolt to Hades.
Them assuming that they have to explain everything to you implies that they don't think that you could figure it out on your own, which is frankly insulting. And then the fight goes on, and there's so much talking and so little doing anything. Luke monologues about how he's the lightning thief and how the gods are evil, but he doesn't give it any emotion. It's not believable. He literally feels like he's reading off of a script.
Why would you do that?
To bring Olympus crumbling down.
The whole interaction is so unnatural and just question and answer, and it just doesn't follow the natural pacing of a human conversation at all. Also, Zeus's bolt is just that, Zeus's. Yet they're both able to use it despite the fact that it's the weapon of a god. And then Percy gets this fabulously animated water trident, and then he just shoots Luke into the Hudson, where there's no land in sight. There's no way he can get out of there. His dad isn't the sea god. So surely he must die from this, right? Nope, he's totally fine in the next movie. It's like it never even happened. The TV show climax, on the other hand, is phenomenal. Percy fights Ares, as he should, and it's done in a way that actually makes sense. In the beginning of the fight, Percy is getting destroyed in hand-to-hand combat. I mean, he is fighting the literal god of war. But then, when Percy goes to the water, you can see in Ares' reaction that he knows what's coming. They even set it up in the beginning that whoever draws the first blood wins the fight.
Single combat. If I draw first blood, I keep the bolt and you surrender the helm.
Something that Luke taught Percy in his older brother role.
When I say don't fight fair, it's not like there are rules.
Of course there are rules.
What's an example?
There's all kinds of examples. Like...
Single combat.
And it just makes the fight seem so much more strategic and so much more possible than just magically being able to wield the weapon of a god and throw your opponent into the Hudson where he magically survives. It just seems so much more realistic and so much more intellectual and like he outsmarted Ares rather than just a brute force battle between him and Luke that isn't nearly as cool. The biggest problem for the pacing of the movie is that they try and combine the climax and the big reveal. The TV show saves this by saving the big reveal of Luke as the lightning thief until the end instead of trying to cram it into the climax. The show also does a great job of establishing Luke's character, and at first he really does seem like someone who fills the older brother role for Percy, takes him under his wing, makes him feel not other. It also goes into his baggage with his dad, Hermes, and his abandonment issues and how he blames Hermes for what happened to his mom. Annabeth mentions this to Percy.
You can't ask Luke about his dad.
They don't get along?
At all.
And we even get to meet Hermes and see his perspective on everything and how Luke is a soft spot for him.
So you might as well at least play a little bit.
We're friends of Luke's.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw you argue. I heard what he said. That what happened to his mom was your fault. That it was all your fault. That he hated you.
Do you know what that feels like? To be so close to someone you love, knowing neither of you has any choice but to keep hurting each other.
This gives so much depth to his character and explains why he's acting out, something the movie does none of. Motives? What are those? Never heard of them. In the show, when Percy mentions that he met his dad, you can see how upset Luke is, showing how much this affects him.
I met your dad.
The TV show also explains how Luke sees Annabeth as little sister and goes into how he and her were on the run together, giving even more backstory to who he is as a character.
Whose side are you on anyway?
Oh, hers. Always. She's my little sister. Thalia didn't make it. But Annabeth and me, we did. And we've been family ever since.
In the confrontation scene in the TV show, Percy doesn't know that Luke's the lightning thief. He figures it out as Luke tries to recruit him for Kronos' army, the aforementioned big bad that the movie failed to set up.
I am your friend, Percy. None of this was meant to betray you. The gods are my enemy. You. I'm here to recruit.
In the beginning, Luke genuinely believes he's going to turn Percy to his side, but as he's talking to Percy about the quest and the prophecy, the oracle, which the movie also cut out, Percy realizes the truth. This is a phenomenal scene, and the acting is impeccable. You can see Percy figuring out it was Luke as he quotes the prophecy, and Luke watching him, realizing Percy figured it out. As the scene continues, you can see Luke realizing his plan has failed, and when Percy rejects his offer, you can see the pain in Percy's face as he sees Luke drifting farther and farther away. Luke then has this great monologue about how he wants the demigods to rise up and overtake their parents.
The gods want us to fight for them, worship them, fear them. They couldn't care less what we want. They're bad parents, Percy, and they've gotten away with it for far too long.
And how Kronos opened his eyes to the truth.
This isn't you. This is Kronos.
He opened my eyes to the truth.
It's some real cult leader shit, and it fits the scene perfectly. And in my favorite moment of the scene, when Percy and Luke are fighting, and Percy hits Luke, in self-defense I might add, Percy instantly apologizes.
Sorry.
This just goes to show what a good person Percy is and how he never wanted to hurt anyone, but Luke doesn't hesitate and slashes him back.
I didn't mean to.
Luke is about to kill Percy when Annabeth shows up. It's a great reveal to see Luke's reaction to Annabeth, who he sees as a little sister, choosing Percy over him. You can really see his pain as he bolts off into the portal, which he doesn't canonically have the ability to create, but okay. Overall, it's a beautiful scene, and it just does the reveal so well. That's not to say the TV show isn't without its faults. In, by far, the worst scene of the entire show, Percy confronts Procrustes, or Krusty, as he prefers it, who he just magically knew was not only a threat.
I know who you are. You're Procrustes, son of Poseidon and murderer of travelers.
But also how he turned his waterbed store into a torture chamber?
The beds are a trap. That's how you do it. How you murder your guests.
How does he know this? Never explained. How does he know that there's a secret passage to the underworld in this waterbed death trap?
I know there's a secret passage to the underworld here. I know you were left here to guard it.
Also never explained. And not only is there not a sorely lacking explanation for this, Krusty just keeps going on and on about the waterbeds as if that's gonna make Percy magically forget that he's a threat and he'll fall for this scheme after all.
In addition to being incredibly comfortable, these beds are great.
That's when invisible Annabeth shows up and pushes Krusty onto a bed where he's wrapped in a blanket. Oh no, I'm a cozy little burrito, save me! And then they head off to the secret underworld passage that they have no reason knowing about. And besides, that's not even where they're supposed to enter the underworld in the first place. And no, it's definitely not the Hollywood sign, it's DOA Records. DOA, get it? Dead on Arrival? Yeah, if you're not from the 90s, good luck getting that reference, which neither adaptation thought was important enough to include, so if it's gonna suck, just don't bother. The movie also has Persephone for no reason other than to justify this ridiculous pearl quest, despite the fact that the whole point of her myth is that she spends the summers with her mother Demeter above ground and the winters with Hades to justify the changing seasons. But it's summer and she's with Hades, which doesn't make sense. So why is she there? But you know, whatever. It's not like this is based on Greek mythology or anything. And then they completely change the story again, leaving Grover behind while Percy, Annabeth, and his mom go to Olympus. And then his mom says nothing. Despite the fact that she was just reunited with her son from death. The TV show's Underworld is far truer to the books and actually includes the crucial Tartarus scene that sets up Kronos as the big bad. Grover is dragged into Tartarus by the shoes that Luke gave them and is only narrowly able to escape because his goat feet don't properly fit in them. This is a crucial moment in Luke and Kronos' plan and something quintessential to Luke's betrayal. The bolt also only appears in Percy's backpack once they reach Tartarus. Which is another crucial piece of the Luke Kronos plan. But because the backpack was given to them by Ares, they assume that it was him who was the lightning thief and that he'd been working with Hades all along.
Wait, this isn't my bag. This is the bag Ares gave me. Ares had the Master Bolt this entire time and tricked us.
I love that the TV show has them have sound logic and reasoning even when they come to the wrong conclusion, because it just makes the whole quest seem so much more believable. Otherwise, it would just seem like they were too stupid to figure it out, or they just magically figured it out for no reason. Having logic to back up what they think makes them feel like actual characters who have their own thoughts and opinions, and their intellect is a crucial part of the quest. The TV show even goes so far as to actually show Percy realizing that he was wrong about Hades and it was Kronos all along. There's this great scene where Hades is droning on in the background and the music crescendos as the camera zooms in on Percy and he realizes that it's Kronos who was in his dreams all along. Needless to say, the movie has no big reveal nor logical explanation of how they figured things out. Unlike the movie, which made rash, illogical changes that were detrimental to the storyline, the TV show actually made good changes that filled in a lot of plot holes from the books. For example, instead of having Percy jump the 40 miles from the St. Louis Arch to the river, like he does in the books, the show explains this by having Poseidon help him by bringing the water to him. This changes Percy's relationship with his dad, and he starts thinking that maybe he is there for him and maybe he does care about him. And this is only strengthened when the Nereid gives Percy 4 pearls instead of the 3 from the book, which only shows him that Poseidon really does care about him and his mom. This changes Percy's relationship with his dad, and he begins to see him more as someone that he can count on, which is in direct conflict with his abandonment issues and really gives the character a lot of depth instead of just being one-dimensional like in the movie. The show also changes this timeline of the story so that the summer solstice actually passes before Percy is able to return the bolt, making his confrontation with Zeus that much more climactic. The movie doesn't do justice to the Olympus scene at all. Not only should Annabeth not be there, Percy doesn't even stand up to the gods. He just returns the bolt, tells them it was Luke, why Luke did it, asks them to bring Grover back, and leaves.
I didn't steal it.
Then who did?
Luke. You see, he was angry at you. All of you. He wanted you to destroy yourselves.
You have done well.
I have a good friend. He's a satyr named Grover. The only reason why we escaped the underworld is because he stayed behind.
And now you expect me to bring him back. Very well.
There's no him standing up for what he believes in. There's no him representing his mother's ideals. There's no conflict between him and the gods and how they're a fucked up family and he thinks they should take responsibility and fix that. Nope. He just gives it back and moves on with his life, taking away all the climax and all of the moral high ground that he has been amounting this whole time. The TV show does this scene so much better. He actually gets there the way he's supposed to, through the entrance of the Empire State Building, as opposed to this random elevator halfway up the building that his mom knows about for some reason, despite the fact that she's never been to Olympus and shouldn't really be there in the first place. Although, when he gets to the lobby, he just throws down the bolt.
I don't have an appointment.
Which is super badass, but if the guy was normal, he would look like a complete psychopath. Just like, hey, yeah, I'm here to see the god of the sky, and no, I don't have an appointment. Buddy, you're gonna have an appointment at the psych ward pretty soon if you keep this shit up. But lucky for him, the receptionist guy isn't normal and lets him go up to Olympus. And he goes to confront Zeus. The whole confrontation scene is super climactic as Percy stands up against the war, which has already started due to him missing the deadline of his quest, making it all the more likely that Zeus will kill him, and making it all the more meaningful that Annabeth gave him her necklace. You can really feel Percy's emotion in this scene, and just how scary Zeus is. But still, Percy Impertinence Jackson keeps going and criticizing Zeus and his fucked up family.
Looking to put you back in your place.
To the point where Zeus is literally about to strike him with his bolt, when Poseidon appears, surrenders the war to save Percy, and then asks Zeus for a minute to talk to Percy, where all Percy does is talk about his mom. It's a really beautiful scene. It really encapsulates Percy's relationship with his dad and what Percy stands for as a character, because he chose to talk about his mom, and it just has so much more depth. Obviously, with a TV show, you have more time to develop the story and the characters, and with a bigger budget, the special effects are obviously going to be better, but I think what it really came down to was the writing. By actually listening to Rick Riordan and having him work on the script, the TV show was able to capture the magic of the story and keep it from coming across like a cheap sellout that didn't do justice to the books, which the movie certainly was. Overall, the movie was a disaster that cut out major plot points and oftentimes didn't make any sense. It sold out the authenticity of the story, leaving audiences disappointed and the author inconsolable. The TV show fixed this absolute disappointment by staying true to the books, actually developing the characters and giving them the depth they needed to be compelling. It even went so far as to add new layers to the story and include little details that saved the authenticity of the book. Rick Riordan should be proud, because he accomplished his goal of fixing the treachery of the Percy Jackson movies with a TV show that finally does justice to the books and delivers Percy Jackson fans the adaptation they've been waiting for. I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.